Breaking news, a series of new retaliatory strikes is testing the U.S. and Iran ceasefire today, marking the worst escalation since the peace deal. An oil tanker hit by an unidentified strike in the Strait just this morning, the Iranian foreign minister says, but there's also new diplomatic momentum on the other front line between Lebanon and Israel. Secretary of State Marco Rubio urging all sides to preserve the ceasefire.
Hopefully, we'll have many more of these conversations and make real and tangible progress so that the people of both of these countries can be hopeful about their future, a future of peace, a future of prosperity, a future of mutual coexistence in a way that's beneficial to the men and women and children, including those not yet born, who deserve what all people deserve, and that is the right to live in their country without fear of harm, without fear of war, without fear of conflict. And that's what we hope to be able to facilitate and achieve.
Joining me now is Nancy Youssef, staff writer at The Atlantic, covering national security and the Defense Department. Nancy, welcome back to the show. So let's start first with the breaking news here. The U.S. military carrying out strikes against Iran, but it's in response to Thursday's Iranian drone attack on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, which violated the ceasefire. Then you have, in response to U.S. retaliation, Iranian drones now targeting Bahrain. How might these back and forth attacks affect the current talks?
So primarily what's happened now is the Strait has gone from being an economic issue to a military one. Iran is trying to show that it can decide how the Strait is open, who can transit through there, that it sets the terms inside the Strait. And the U.S. is trying to demonstrate that it can protect freedom of navigation. And so that's the pressure points that you're seeing going back and forth in these strikes and counterstrikes. They're trying to do so in such a way that sends those messages, but doesn't do enough to restart the war, which I don't think either side is looking for. The challenges in these, with every strike and counterstrike, you risk the unintended consequence of escalation that neither side is looking for. And because of this argument over the Strait, it makes diplomacy harder because, remember, the Memorandum of Understanding was supposed to be a sort of confidence-building measure. The reopening of the Strait would be the sort of first step in reaching an agreement on all these issues. And now that's been eroded because of these strikes and counterstrikes. And on top of that, you now have a peace process that doesn't just involve ballistic weapons, nuclear weapons, drone capability, what's happening in Lebanon with Iran's proxies there. But now the Strait is back into the conversation, at the forefront of the conversation again.
So these strikes are coming as diplomatic efforts. They're already strained. You've got the new Israel-Lebanon framework. They're trying to mitigate ceasefire violations there. How well do you expect the Israel-Lebanon framework to hold up? And if it doesn't, I mean, despite your point that there's no appetite for war to restart, if that falls, does war restart potentially by Iran? They've made pretty clear their intentions on that.
It's an excellent question. Remember, Israel didn't sign the Memorandum of Understanding, nor did they agree to it, and they've said that they continue to retain the right to defend themselves. At the same time, they don't want to do anything that antagonizes President Trump or further strains relations between the U.S. and Israel, which were, remember, partners at the start of this war. And so I think of all the conflicts, that is the most tenuous one and the one that risks leading to a restart of hostilities. I think the definition of what hostilities looks like in that scenario is where things get a little harder to understand, because you could see a scenario in which both sides are going back and forth in Lebanon, but not in Iran itself. But you're getting at the heart of it. There are so many issues to be sorted out and so many parties involved that trying to do all these issues at the same time, with different parties having vastly different interests in some cases, makes the diplomacy all the harder. You know, the question becomes, what needs to be negotiated first? Is it Strait, or is it Lebanon, to make sure that further issues can be dealt with down the road?
Well, let's go back to the Strait, because Iran is warning the commercial ships to follow a very specific transit route through the Strait, despite the entire waterway being open under the MOU. Is Iran now trying to assert control, test the limits, or does this risk further escalation? What do you think the chances are the Strait could even shut down again?
So it's interesting, in paragraph 5 of the Memorandum of Understanding, It says that Iran will, quote unquote, make arrangements to reopen the strait, but it doesn't define what those arrangements are. And I think there's a scenario in which Iran is defining making arrangements as, for example, only allowing ships to go through a very specific route, or that they have to check with Iran first, those ships, before they go through. So I think what you're seeing now is the consequence of some of the ambiguity around the strait. While it reopened the strait, the memorandum of understanding, it didn't define what happened on day 2, day 3 between now and day 60 when Iran can start charging again. So I think Iran is looking to sort of define what arrangements looks like, and the U.S. is trying to push back and say it doesn't involve that level of control by Iran over the strait.
On Friday, the head of the IAEA, of course, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said that the current agreement allows inspectors to enter Iran's nuclear facilities to verify the state of its program, and indicated inspections would happen, quote, soon. How soon? I mean, what still needs to get done before inspectors can even get to work?
Well, we need to know that Iran will let them in and give them access to the sites that they are supposed to give access to. There's been some pushback on that as well. It's the general terms, I think, can be agreed upon, but what makes these deals work or not work are the specifics in terms of what access looks like, how they will facilitate it, how they'll provide security for it, what are the exact mechanisms to ensure that the IAEA inspectors can do the kind of work that they were doing up until last year.
This situation is getting more complicated day by day, even though there is official ceasefire between the US and Iran. Both sides are still exchanging military actions, and that is raising serious concerns about how long this agreement can actually last. What actually stood out to me is the growing importance of the Strait of Hormuz. It's no longer just an economic issue. It's becoming a military flashpoint. If tensions keep rising there, global shipping and oil markets could be affected, which would have consequences for beyond the region. Another key point is that diplomacy is becoming much harder, with Iran, the US, Israel, and Lebanon all involved in different but connected conflicts. Every new strike increases the risk of a large escalation. If Even if no side says if it wants a full-scale war. For now, negotiations are still moving forward, but the next few weeks will be critical. If both sides can avoid further escalation, diplomacy still have a chance. Diplomacy may still have a chance. Otherwise, this fragile ceasefire could face even greater pressure.